In the long twisty history of weird cars, one name stands above the rest. Not for its speed, not for its beauty, but for just how bizarrely wrong things went. Meet the Austin Allegro. A car so infamous it became a national joke. A car that made people ask, who approved this? And yet this so-called rolling disaster was hiding secrets so bold, so advanced and so absurd, it just might blow your mind. This was the car that was supposed to save British Leyland, Britain's giant car empire in the 70s. From square steering wheels to exploding dashboards, this car has stories that sound made up, but they're 100% real. But what if the Allegro was never the real problem? What if the decisions that doomed it were made long before it ever hit the road? Buckle up, because this isn't just a story about a car. It's about failure, ambition, sabotage, and the weirdest luxury trim in history. Smash that subscribe button like you're slamming a faulty Allegro door that won't shut properly, and let's dive into the shocking secrets of the Austin Allegro. And you won't believe how this car almost looked like a spaceship in its early design phase until management ruined everything. Let's start with what could have been. The original design of the Allegro, yes, there was a time it actually looked cool, was sleek, futuristic, and almost coupe-like. Designer Harris Mann sketched out a vision of an aerodynamic family car, with a low-slung body and flowing lines. It looked ready to glide through the 70s like a budget Aston Martin. But then British Leyland management stepped in. They said, "Hey, we've got a warehouse full of leftover parts from the Austin 1100. Use those." So the design was raised, the proportions were distorted. The wide-set front wings were bloated to fit components that didn't belong there. And just like that, the Allegro was morphed into a compact car with the profile of a startled frog. And while the original design was made with European markets in mind, management insisted on tweaks to suit the American market, despite knowing full well the Allegro would never be exported there. They added safety bumpers, widened the stance, and made it heavier, all while keeping the small 1.1L engine that wheezed like it had asthma. The final product was a Frankenstein of compromises, unloved by its creators and mocked by almost everyone else. But wait till you hear how things got even worse on the inside. Yes, we're about to talk about that square steering wheel next, and why it wasn't just a design fail, but a sign of a bigger issue inside the company. Okay, the Quartic steering wheel. You've probably heard this one already, but the real story behind it is even wilder. The wheel wasn't round, it wasn't even oval. It was a weird mix between a square and a circle. Basically, someone looked at a plate and said, what if this was harder to drive with? British Leyland claimed it improved legroom and gave drivers a clearer view of the dashboard. But let's be honest, it mostly confused people. It felt awkward in your hands, made three-point turns feel like solving a Rubik's Cube, and worst of all, it gave people a reason to laugh at the Allegro before they even drove it. One newspaper called it a steering wheel that doubled as a boomerang. Even the test drivers hated it, but management insisted it would be a design talking point. And it sure was. By 1975, British Leyland quietly ditched it without ever admitting it was a mistake. It became symbolic of the Allegro's biggest problem, innovation without practicality. But not every innovation in the Allegro was bad, because under that bulbous body was a suspension system that was light years ahead of its time, until it started leaking like a broken tea kettle. Let's dig into the weird science of the Hydrogas system and how it made the Allegro one of the comfiest cars on British roads, until it broke. The Allegro featured something called Hydrogas suspension, a system developed by Dr. Alex Moulton, the same genius behind the Mini's suspension. Instead of traditional springs, the Allegro used nitrogen gas and fluid-filled displacers connected from front to back. It sounded fancy, and in theory it was. The goal? A smooth ride that absorbed bumps like a luxury saloon. And on fresh, well-maintained cars, the system actually worked. Reviewers at the time noted the car glided over rough roads like a soft pillow on wheels. So what went wrong? Maintenance. British Leyland didn't educate owners or mechanics on how to service it properly. Over time, the gas would leak, fluid levels would drop, and the Allegro would start leaning, sometimes hilariously, to one side. But the worst part? British Leyland knew about the issues. They even considered switching to traditional suspension in later models, but it was too late. The damage to the Allegro's reputation was already done. Still, the Hydrogas system went on to be used successfully in later cars like the Metro and the MGF, so the tech wasn't bad, it was just poorly executed, like everything else in the Allegro's journey. But if you think things couldn't get any weirder, wait until we talk about the Vanden Plas Allegro, a luxury car that looked like it should be chauffeuring a cartoon villain. This next part is pure comedy gold because, yes, they tried to make the Allegro look like a baby Rolls-Royce. This might be the strangest chapter in the Allegro saga. In a move that screams, "We've officially run out of ideas," British Leyland teamed up with Vanden Plas, known for luxury, to create a high-end version of the Allegro. Leather seats? Check. Wood-trimmed dashboards? Check. Rear picnic tables? Check. But here's the kicker. They added a tiny chrome grille that looked like it came from a Rolls-Royce. It was like putting a tuxedo on a chicken. Dubbed the Vanden Plas 1500, this version aimed to attract the executive class. It even had upgraded sound insulation and power features. But underneath, it was still just a regular Allegro, with the same underpowered engine and all the quirks intact. People were confused. Was it a joke? Was it a social experiment? It didn't help that the grille stuck out so much, it made the car look like it had braces. Yet somehow it developed a cult following. Today, Vanden Plas Allegros are collector's items, ironically of course, but it proves that even the weirdest car can find love in the right circles. And speaking of love, guess how many Allegros were sold in total? The answer might shock you. Let's break down the production numbers, models, engines, and yes, real performance specs. Here's what most people don't know. The Allegro was actually one of the best-selling British cars of its era. Over 640,000 units were sold between 1973 and 1982. Not bad for a car so often mocked, right? Now, let's talk specs. Engines ranged from 1.1L, 46 GP, to 1.75L, around 75 GP. Top speed between 85 and 100 miles per hour depending on model, downhill with a tailwind. 0-60 miles per hour, somewhere between eventually and maybe never. Transmission 4-speed manual or optional 3-speed automatic. Curb weight around 901,000 kilograms depending on trim. Fuel economy decent, around 30-35 mpg imperial. Body styles 2-door, 4-door and 3-door estate. But here's the thing, these weren't terrible numbers for a compact car in the 70s. The Allegro wasn't trying to be a race car. It just wanted to move families affordably. Its biggest problem, expectations. British Leyland hyped it as revolutionary, but it was really just evolutionary, stuffed with compromises and sabotage by poor management. Still, it outsold many better cars. People bought it, lived with it, and some even liked it. But before we wrap this up, there's one final twist you need to hear. A secret prototype that could have rewritten Allegro history, if only it had been approved. And yes, this part involves turbochargers, futuristic designs, and the Allegro equipe. Did you know British Leyland actually experimented with sporty Allegros? Yes, there was an Allegro equipe, released in 1979. It had Go Faster stripes, two-tone paint, and a slightly tuned 1.7L engine. Power jumped to a modest 76 GP. It looked sportier, but still handled like a shopping cart full of potatoes. It flopped, but behind the scenes, engineers were working on prototypes that had real potential. One of them was fitted with a turbocharger, yes, a turbo Allegro. It was meant to rival the VW Golf GTI. Another was given advanced electronics and a sleeker, updated body shell. But by the time those ideas came up, it was too late. The Allegro name was poison. British Leyland decided to move on, and the Allegro quietly disappeared in 1982, replaced by the Austin Maestro. Had these prototypes been greenlit earlier, who knows? Maybe the Allegro would have had a redemption arc. Instead it became the car everyone loves to hate. And yet, can't stop talking about. So, was the Austin Allegro a failure? From one angle, yes, it didn't live up to its promise. But from another, it was a brave experiment filled with bold ideas, strange decisions, and moments of accidental brilliance. It was a car caught between eras, between innovation and compromise, between brilliance and chaos, and that's what makes it legendary. It wasn't boring, it wasn't forgettable. It was weird, wonderful and deeply flawed, like many of us. The Allegro may not have saved British Leyland, but it gave us something better: stories, memes, myths, and lessons about what happens when management ignores the engineers. Thanks for riding along with us through this quirky, bouncy journey. If you laughed, learned something new, or just love weird cars, smash that like button, subscribe to ABD Tech Lab, and drop your weirdest car memory in the comments below. And hey, don't be surprised if the Allegro becomes cool again. Stranger things have happened in the car world.